say I felt that the storytelling was great and that the action wasn't quite par with the typical Bourne action.
I felt exactly the opposite. The action was right on par with Bourne action, and the storytelling, by the end, there were so many dangling loose ends. The thing looked like an octopus that had gotten in a fight with a team of razor blades.
I think that was on purpose. I think they were trying to leave the whole story open-ended. Obviously, it's supposed to have another one attached to the end of it. That's why there was so many loose ends. I think that they deliberately were sloppy with the story.
You know what you do in that case?
Because it's not supposed to all wind up.
You know what you do in that case? You call it the Bourne Legacy Part 1.
Oh, come on.
That's the only way you can do it and retain any self-respect, because you're right. It's clearly made to just have another movie tacked onto it, but they're selling it like it's a standalone piece.
You know what I appreciate? I appreciate when you'd make multiple movies as a multi-movie project instead of just tying up all the loose ends and then throwing another movie on there and like having to make up the loose ends to tie the two stories together.
No, you know what? I'm completely in favor of that sort of thing. What I'm not in favor of is marketing it as if it's a movie you can watch and expect to get a story that ties up. I mean, at least Ultimatum tied up at the end, Supremacy tied up at the end, and Identity. All of those movies wrapped themselves up at the end.
And they said the same problem. They tied themselves up, and then the next movie felt like it was being tacked on there. They were really stretching in order to get the two stories to link up.
I didn't feel like the stretch was that big.
Okay, it wasn't that big, but it was there, and it was a discredit to both the second and third movie. Whereas this one, it's totally obvious that this story is supposed to continue.
They clearly left it open, but at the same time, this movie is even further down the rabbit hole of strangeness that they did in Ultimatum. Like, Supremacy is a straight sequel to Identity, okay? Now, Ultimatum takes place in the last 2 minutes of Supremacy.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Between the final conflict and the epilogue, we get Ultimatum. The problem is, here, we get a movie that takes place parallel to Ultimatum. So this one is actually taking place inside of a movie that's taking place inside of the last 2 minutes of the previous movie. It's insane. I feel like I'm watching Inception, only without Ellen Page.
That actually explains quite a bit, because I haven't seen Ultimatum. I didn't know it was running parallel.
Yeah, I can't imagine what you must have thought of this.
It wasn't running parallel.
I was watching it the whole time thinking, Jonathan doesn't understand a thing that's going on right now.
A lot of it made sense. Like, you could tell why they were doing what they were doing and what was going on. There's a lot of stuff, of course, I was in the dark on that I couldn't really grasp at, but I thought it was a good action movie. For people who haven't seen the first three, there's enough setup in there so that you'll follow the storyline.
I was not thrilled by the action. The very first scene in Identity where he beats up those two Russian cops or whatever, you're just like, holy shit, what just happened? Where this was just another action sequence. They're driving the dirt bike, and then the dirt bike keeps going, and 45 minutes later they're still driving the dirt bike. I don't care about this. I don't care about
the motorcycle scene was excessive.
Yeah,
I will give you that.
Definitely was.
The action sequences need to be short and sweet. That's just my opinion. You can't be trying to eat up time with a car chase.
I would agree ordinarily, but the problem there is that type of an action approach only works on a standalone work. It worked on Identity because Identity was the genesis. It was the beginning. It was a work you could watch from start to finish and never watch anything else about it, get everything, and have a completely satisfying standalone work. And in a thing like that, it works fine. The problem is, with every subsequent sequel, you have to up the ante. If you're not, then there's no point telling the story. It's like one of the cardinal rules of screenwriting is, if this isn't the most important thing that's ever happened to the character, why are we telling this story?
I would say that they really did try and make up a little too much with the action sequences. More story needed to be there. Although I do totally get what you're saying. I think that the first movie was the way it was because there was so much else going on. The car chase scene in Identity is like a minute and a half long, and it's great. It was small scale.
You are not going to come at me with Identity and get me to go, oh no, this movie is so much better than Identity, because Identity, what? I said so. It's the gold standard. It's fantastic. It's near perfect. The quality has been declining steadily with every subsequent
Identity.
movie.
I'm just trying to give an example of where I felt the film went wrong.
I agree, but the problem is, once again, you have to ramp it up in sequels. It would have been better as like, let's just tell a completely different story about a spy.
In the same world.
In the same type of world. Not even the same world. This story does not depend on the other stories other than the way they forced it to in order to get the Bourne name in there. Yeah. If they had written it as a completely standalone spy story and brought in this character named Aaron Cross, I would have been like, Great, love it. Jeremy Renner as a super spy. It was the shoehorning it into the Bourne universe that wrecked this story.
Well, it was a little bit off kilter.
Yeah,
you could tell that it was directed by somebody else. It didn't quite capture the Bourne thing, and I felt like if it wasn't trying to capture the Bourne thing, I probably would have enjoyed it a lot more.
Jonathan, care to weigh in?
From what Seth's been saying, I really do agree. It's just an action movie. It didn't make any huge impression on me. I'm not going to go home and tell my friends they have to go see this movie.
I will actually recommend people, just go watch The Bourne Identity again. It's a better movie. You'll have more fun watching it. And that's sad because Renner was good in it. Edward Norton was good in it. Everybody was pretty solid in it, except the guy they brought in from Ultimatum. The guy who played the CIA director in Ultimatum. He's in the movie for like a minute, but he's off-puttingly bad. It's another one of those moments where they tried to tie it into the Bourne universe, and it didn't need to be. Ultimately, this movie really bummed me out. I mean, I sort of expected it to, like I said, given the declining quality of the writing, but it really was sloppy.
I didn't particularly like Yakuza Assassin, dude. I mean, he doesn't say anything the entire movie, but he just looks like an assassin, and I'm telling you what, if you train people to kill people, they're not going to look like that.
That is crazy, because I was thinking that the whole movie, I was thinking, for professional assassins, they act like movie assassins. You would think a professional killer would act very opposite to the cinematic
That
ideal.
was one of the things I loved about the first film, was they did play that. Like, the guys in the first film were very normal people, sort of. I would just like to say that I did really like Rachel Weisz and Jeremy Renner in this movie. The movie I didn't particularly like, but it's not because of either of them. I thought they were both great in it. Ratings. You go first. You never go first, Gabe.
All right, I'm going to give it a 5.
I was going to say exactly the same thing.
As much as I loved the performances and stuff, the writing was really sloppy. And even the action, as much as I love a good action movie, it didn't keep me engaged. I was kind of bored most of the movie. It's not like I ever felt like walking out. It kept my attention, but just barely, and I have no desire to ever see it again. The writing was terrible, but the performances were excellent. So you have two opposing forces pulling against each other. And ultimately, it just left me right in the middle where I just didn't care.
I think I'm going with a 5 too.
Yeah, I think ambivalence definitely defines my opinion on this movie.
It didn't make an impression whatsoever. It's just kind of your cookie cutter action movie.
It doesn't change my opinion of Jeremy Renner. I wouldn't count this on his bad movies.
No,
just
not at all.
Simply because he's totally great in it.
I think the acting kept it from being below a 5.
The one thing I think, though, is if there is a conclusion to this story, if there's a second part, and the reason it is the way that it is because it's the first chapter in another story that's being told, and they just kind of shuffled all their B-plots into the first movie, this movie may be redeemed at some point along the way.
It would take a lot to do that for me. It would have to be a truly excellent follow-up. Although, I've had that experience before, where a movie has been saved by its sequel. So, I hope so, because I feel like the Bourne series deserves better than this.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for watching. We appreciate every single person who watches this show. Please click our annotations bar to go to our channel. Like, subscribe. Check us out on Facebook and Twitter. We got a blog up now. All the links are going to be in the description. Check us out next week when we review The Expendables Part 2.
Stoked about it.
I'm actually way more excited about that than I was about this.
Yeah, no kidding.
Goodbye.
Let's get out of this truck before we all cook.